I am a life coach, a motivational speaker, and a different ability awareness activist. And I myself have cerebellar ataxia. Over the years, I've navigated various challenges, but one thing that I've learned is that sharing our stories can create powerful changes. With this in mind, I am happy to present 4 panelists who live with ataxia and have valuable and intriguing insights to share with us today. Today, on Ataxia Awareness Day, our panelists will be discussing what ataxia is, the challenges of living with it, current treatments, and how ableism impacts them. We are also looking to the future, where greater awareness can lead to better treatments and, more importantly, more awareness and acceptance. Okay, so let me begin today's discussion with a mind-boggling statistic that will put into perspective the importance and uniqueness of the discussion we're having today. Right, so we have about 8 billion people on this planet. So 16% of those people experience a significant disability. And within that, just 6 to 8% of those people live with neurological conditions. And then further, the panelists that we have today, ataxia makes up only 0.002% of those 6 to 8%, about 1 in 50,000 people. It's just mind-boggling. So let's get on to our discussion for today. I'm excited to talk with our 4 incredible panelists from around the world, each with a unique experience to share. So our first panelist is Valeria from Fishkill, USA. Thank you for joining us today, Valeria.
Thanks for having me.
Our next panelist is George, all the way from Hamburg, UK. George, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Amanda is representing California, USA. Amanda, thrilled to have you here early on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, we have Jacob from Austria, Europe. Jacob, thank you for joining us. Paul, can we?
Hello from Vienna.
What's that?
I said hello from Vienna.
Vienna.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you for joining us. And I am here representing India. So I'm excited for our discussion here today. So let's begin with the first question I have for all of you. So I want to hear from all of you about your specific type of ataxia and how it progressed for each of you. So Amanda, I'll start with you. Can you please tell us about your specific type of ataxia and how you've seen it change over time?
I was diagnosed in 2018 with spinocerebellar ataxia type 6. I inherited it from my father, and over time, I think the most significant change for me, because my background is in fitness and nutrition, I started a fitness and nutrition business in 2007, and was very, very active, getting up every day at 4 a.m. and working with clients all day long, and working out quite a bit myself. I have been a runner for most of my life. And I think the most significant change for me has just been my ability to kind of maintain movement. I started falling down in 2019 when I was doing trail runs. I used to also race road bikes, and I can no longer ride bikes. It's also just affected my kind of day-to-day in how much time I need to take just trying to quiet my nervous system. I'm currently not working, trying to find ways to help people like I used to without the physically demanding work that I used to do. So hopefully that kind of answers your question a little bit. It is very early here for me, so.
It is. Thank you for that answer, Amanda. Over to you, Valeria. What specific challenges do you face with your diagnosis?
Wow, there's a lot of them. Specific challenges. Probably the hardest part for me was giving up everything. I was very athletic. I worked for a bank. I was an executive. So I had to give all that up, the driving, because my gait is horrible. And my speech changes as the day gets longer. It's early here. So I haven't yapped all day. When I do, my speech is horrible. I sound like a drunken soldier, actually. And but as far as, you know, the challenges I have in life, I guess it's just getting around. Like, I used to not think of anything. I used to wake up in the morning and just go and do stuff. Now my brain has to tell my legs to move forward, or my arms. My tremors are harder than they used to be. They were more relaxed, but I don't know if everybody experiences it, but I also get seizures. I haven't in a while now. They have me on the right medication, and I get migraines. Those are the things that have progressed through the years. When they had diagnosed me originally, it was 2001. They called it cerebral degeneration, which I think is incorrect. I think I need a new study done, a genetic study. The reason being is because it started with me. It's not hereditary at all. I keep losing connection. I apologize for that. I think I covered most of your question.
Yes,
I'm not
you
really sure, because sometimes, you know, in my mind, I think I'm answering the question, and then I start talking, I go off a little bit, so I apologize.
Valeria, you did perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you.
For your answer. George, over to you. If you can tell me about your experience with Friedreich's ataxia and how it has evolved for you.
Yeah, I do share Valeria's point that the hardest really is not the condition itself, it's things you have to give up or how society treats you, because all of a sudden you're someone else. And the hardest for me was giving up working, and I was in academia. I was teaching and researching history of architecture. I loved it. Going to archaeological excavations all over the Mediterranean, looking at dig sites. Absolutely great. And now I cannot even imagine getting there at this stage. So my walking is obviously worse than it was 20 years ago. I got diagnosed about 10 years ago, which is quite late for street race. And it's been an interesting journey. It's supposed to get even worse. Something we simply have to accept and make our peace with, and look optimistic in the future.
Mm-hmm. Jacob, can you describe the symptoms you face in Friedreich's ataxia and how you deal with them?
Mm-hmm. So I was diagnosed in 2011, 13 years ago. And to understand it, I was diagnosed and the doctor told me you will sit in a wheelchair in 5 to 10 years and you will lose the ability to take care of yourself. So that was like back then it was barely noticeable, so it was quite strange to hear that. So I ignored it for 4 years and then I started to face it. So my symptoms, meanwhile, it's mostly coordination and balance problems. So problems walking downstairs, walking, especially in the evening when I get tired or when it gets dark. I have minor problems with hand motoric, a bit of speech, but it's not really stressing me. So that what I want to keep doing is walking, and what I work on is balance and walking.
Yep. I voice all of you. I was diagnosed in the late 90s, I was diagnosed with cerebral ataxia. And this will bring me to my next question about current treatments that Valeria, you touched upon as well. I'll just go into, so I want to talk about the current treatments. So as we know, Ataxia doesn't have a treatment that just suits everyone. So if I want to ask the panelists individually, what treatments have been effective for them and what challenges remain in finding proper care. So let me start with my answer. So my answer is I was diagnosed with cerebellar degeneration, similar to yourself, but it was so long ago that medicine has advanced. So like you said, getting another diagnosis is fruitful because it will likely show that, it more specifics to your particular condition. That's my experience with it. There is no medical treatment for the type of ataxia that I have. So I'm relying mostly on physiotherapy and just being as mobile as possible. So Valeria, if you can hear from you first, what treatments, medical or otherwise, that you've undergone that you find beneficial or that you don't advise?
I have an aggressive neurologist. He's very aggressive in his medication. May I say what I take?
Yes,
for
please.
The attacks? Okay. I take a high dosage of gabapentin. I take 2,700 milligrams a day. And that has avoided me from having the seizures, and it's calmed my tremors down. I take Klonopin. A lot of times it's prescribed as an antidepressant, but it doesn't work that way with me. It also stops my tremors. Normally, if I forgot my medication, I would shake a lot more. Like I said, my gait would be off, which we all have problems dealing with. I am trying to use mobile devices. I'm using the Canadian crutches right now, and I often use a rollator walker, and I sometimes use a wheelchair. I like to use a scooter. However, insurance, I don't know what happens when you're disabled. They make it very difficult for you to get them. But I found out this week that there are places throughout the country, throughout the world as well, that have equipment that is lightly used. And the reason being is because the person may have progressed or may have passed on. So these are donated to these companies. So I'm looking to use them. As far as mentally, I think for me, my mental status, because giving everything up, which you know, is very difficult. So I do exercise. I probably exercise more now that I'm older than I did younger. So I do it for a lot of reasons. I do it because it keeps me centered, you know, and it helps with my balance. It doesn't perfect my balance because from one day to the next, it can go either way. It can be good, it can be bad. I don't know ahead of time. But I think if I didn't do any form of exercise, I wouldn't do well at all. I think I covered it all.
Yes,
I'm not sure.
Valeria, one thing I want to add. So I have problems walking as well. My problem is balance. So it's kind of like the Leaning Tower of pizza, right? You can't leave me more than a second, otherwise I'm going to topple over. So one thing I'm currently using is it's a walker. It's called the U-Step walker. It's made particularly for Parkinson's patients. So I find that helpful. Yeah.
When you describe that walker, do you move it forward or do you pull it from the back?
No. So what's special? So you walk. It's a walker. So it's a front walker, right?
Okay.
What's special about it is the brakes. So the brakes are on automatically, and to use it, you have to kind of press the brakes. So it's kind of opposite to how walkers usually function, which is, they're always, the wheels are always on go mode, and to stop it, it's like a bicycle, you have to press the brake. In this case, it's always on brake, and to go, you have to press the brake, if that makes sense.
Could you say the name of it again?
Yeah, sure. It's the U-Step walker. U-Step.
Okay.
U-Step. Okay, Jacob, over to you. So tell me about the medical or other alternative treatments that you've undergone and the positive or negative results.
Yeah. So Friedreich's ataxia hasn't had a treatment until 2022. So I lived 11 years knowing about it without a treatment. So my approach is and still is have a holistic approach. So I think it's wrong to wait for a treatment or a cure. It is more important to take care of yourself, what you can actually do.
Yes.
So my approach has 5 parts, which actually comes from Deepak Chopra. Maybe you know him. So I define my health about 5 things. It's sleep, then meditation, then movement, then social interaction like friends and family, and then diet. So, and that's the order. So the most important for me is to have a good sleep and to recover. Then when I get up, I try to meditate and take care of my mental health. Then when that is good, I do movement. I go into a physical rehab center for weeks a year since it's been my 10th time this year. So there I take care of my balance and walking. And then right now I'm in my rowing club because in 1 hour I have training. So I row. I work out 4 to 5 times a week, and there I strengthen my muscles and my coordination. And this I do thanks to another panelist here. So George can tell you more about that. And then I think it's very important to have a working social interaction with friends and family and diet, of course. And to end this discussion, since 5 months, I take Sky Claris. That's the first approved treatment for FA. And I don't notice a lot, but it's a good feeling to take something that's officially against FA. So with that approach, I'm dealing quite well with life, and I have it under control, which is most important.
That's good to hear. I have something to add, but before I do, George, let's go over to you. You have a diagnosis of Friedrich's as well. So is there anything you want to add to Jacob, or is there any other medical or alternative treatments that you've undergone that you found helpful or adversive?
Well, here in the UK, we are a bit behind Europe, and the United Kingdom Medical Authority hasn't approved Sky Claris yet, as far as I know. I fully agree with Jacob. It's not what Ataxia can do for you, it's what you can do for Ataxia. And that means we have to get active, we have to get involved, and most importantly, do exercise. So I do train similar to Jacob a lot, and we argue every now and then about heart rate. I think our heart rate patients, which are suggested from the medical side, are very conservatively assessed, and we can actually train harder than they believe we can.
Yes.
But it's really down to the individual, how you feel about your own body, how much you can actually push your body, and then counter muscular degeneration with building muscles, counter cardiovascular problems with cardio training, and counter mitochondrial malfunction with building mitochondria. And a lot of it is possible with relentless and continuous sport effort. So if we talk about treatments, there is no official treatment in the UK for Friedreich's. And what I do is I take matters in my own hand and train every day, 2 hours if I can, even more. So good to see you in the rowing club, Jacob. That's quite impressive.
over to you, Amanda. Can you tell us about any medical or alternative treatments that you've undergone?
Yeah, when I was first diagnosed in 2018, I started working with a whole movement team, and the neurologist is very aggressive as well and very supportive. The first thing he said was, don't stop running until you start falling down to the point where you just can't get up and run anymore. He did tell me to stop riding bikes because my balance is affected mostly in sway. So side to side for me. And when you're on a bike, if you're looking to see, if there's a car coming, I immediately head off, off the side of the road. So
yeah, because your head is the heaviest part of your body. So if you look that way, your body follows.
Yeah. So he said, no more bikes, but keep running and keep doing all the things. And because of my background, it has, that's always been a really, really big part for me is fitness and movement. One of the biggest changes that I made, because from 2018 to about 2022, in 2022, my symptoms got much, much worse. And I was advised to change my diet at the time because I had been vegan for about 5 years. And I also have celiac, and I can't eat soy, and there's a lot of nuts I can't eat. So my food intake was very, very limited. And I was advised to start eating animal protein again. And within probably 1 to 2 weeks of reintroducing animal protein into my diet, I was able to run again, which I hadn't been able to run for almost 9 months at all. So that was a big change that I made that has actually been really, really amazing to see the difference between then and now. As for my approach, I'm much, much along the same lines of taking matters into my own hands and trying to get sleep is really, really hard for me. And I think part of that is having gone through menopause, which I think is a big thing for people who suffer with ataxia. If that's part of your symptoms progressing at the same time as you're going through that change in your life as well, there are significant differences there. Sleep, exercise, meditation is very, very important to me. Also, art and drawing and writing. I do a lot of writing, and of course the nutrition aspect. As far as medications, when my symptoms were really bad, I was put on everything from gabapentin to baclofen because one of my biggest challenges physically is I have debilitating migraines, and I also have seizure-like episodes that are connected to the cervical dystonia, which has been kind of the question's been, is it paroxysmal dystonia, which is another thing that comes into play with different SCAs. But the gabapentin and the baclofen and I think Cymbalta at one point, they all made me feel so awful. I couldn't do any of the things that were beneficial for me, like movement and things like that. It made that all very compromised. So now the only thing that I take occasionally, well, a few times a week, is I will take Flexeril, a very low dose of Flexeril at bedtime, so that my muscles can actually relax.
Okay. Wow, that's really interesting. Seeing that most of us are from different parts of the world, I'm seeing a lot of parallels. I myself, I also take matters into my own hands from the very beginning. My symptoms progressed within 2 years. So I was a gymnast, all of a sudden, I couldn't even bounce on the beam anymore. So bike riding is definitely out of the question for me. But exercise has been part of my diet since the early age of 12 or 13. And I think that runs similar to most of us. Exercise and movement is really important. I think not just for us, but anyone for movement disorder, because it's easy for someone with movement disorder to say, oh, this is too difficult for me. I don't want to do this. But I think in terms of pushing yourself, or like many of you have already stated, being aggressive, I think that's the key. Jacob and Amanda, you guys mentioned meditation. I think that's super important. I didn't really realize this. Most of us are focused on our body, including myself. We don't want it to deteriorate, this and that, but at the end of the day, ataxia, in whatever shape, way, or form, it is a central nervous system disorder. So calming my nerves has proven beneficial for me. I try to do meditation. The optimum word there is try. On good days, I'll try to put myself in a quiet room and listen along to YouTube, or listen to a tranquil meditative song for about 30 minutes and just focus on my breathing or my third eye or something like that. That's very important. And Amanda, I don't want to belabor this question, but one thing that is truly interesting to me is I also became vegetarian about 15 years ago. I was vegetarian for a period of 15 years, and recently a doctor told me to start eating animal protein again. And I've seen effects, and hearing that you have also faced a similar situation is encouraging to me. So thank you for sharing the fruits of this discussion are already being seen.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next question is on ableism. So if you don't know, I will define ableism. Ableism is discrimination and social prejudice against people with disabilities. Ableism characterizes people as they are defined by their disabilities, and it also classifies disabled people as people who are inferior to non-disabled people. So, Valeria, my first question is to you. Can you share some of your experiences in life where you felt discriminated against or excluded?
That's an easy question.
Okay.
One day I'm at a diner with my friends having breakfast, and I heard the table right next to us say, "Can you believe that girl is drunk so early in the morning?"
Oh my.
Well, I was totally insulted. So it's hard. And then one time I went to a bar and a similar thing happened. I'm not a drinker, but that night I felt like a drink, just a glass of something. And the waitress, she was polite about it, but she also thought it was drunk. So she didn't want to serve me. So I got this. I don't know if you can see it. I got it through Etsy, and it has my full name on it. It explains the disease completely. And now when it's ever said to me, I show that card. There's other instances. There's a few restaurants where they only had stairs. They said their grandfather didn't, so they don't have to have the any kind of elevation to lift you up or walk easily, so you had to walk up steps. And those are the three things I really felt. As far as personal discrimination with friends or family, I don't feel it as much. I feel like they understand that I have ataxia. The thing I feel that they don't understand is what we go through on a daily basis. Like, you go with Friedrich's ataxia, it's a lot different than ours. Yeah. Or I don't even know. I got to get retested. I have to have a new genetic testing. But I think our family, though they know what we have, they don't quite understand what we really go through on a daily basis. But I think that's my three things I feel discriminated in public sometimes, thinking I'm drunk. And my family, not quite. I mean, they're on my side. Don't I'm not saying anything bad about them. They just don't understand what I really have to go through on a daily basis. So that's it.
I've also been called drunk myself once. It's not a good feeling.
No.
Over to you, Amanda. Can you tell us, have you ever faced discrimination in the workplace due to your different ability, and how did you cope with that?
I wouldn't say in the workplace, but there was one, because for me, the way that I move through the world is, my symptoms around balance and things like that are still pretty low. I have episodes where, especially like I was saying, when my symptoms got really were much worse before last year. I was at the airport, and when I'm in really crowded places or where there's a lot of light or a lot of sounds and things going, my nystagmus and my cervical dystonia get triggered much more. And I was going through an airport, and I was really struggling, and I had walking sticks. And when I went to TSA, I was trying to put the walking sticks through security, and the security guard told me I couldn't have them, that obviously I didn't need them, because he looked at me and said, "You're fine, you don't need these."
That's horrible.
And it was this whole thing, and had to get another security guard over to make sure that this one guy gave me the walking sticks. And by the time that I made it through that, because it was so upsetting, I could not actually walk with the walking sticks to the gate. So I had to get assistance to make it to the gate. And yeah, so that when the episodes happen is usually for me when things like that come up.
I think it's one thing to face discrimination from your peers, but when the authorities refuse to understand, I think that takes it to a whole new level. And it's really disheartening. Yeah. Over to you, George. So I know you're a fitness enthusiast. Tell me, in your experience, how accessible are the gyms that you've been to? Those people with different abilities, can they work out independently? And have you ever faced any skepticism or your looks while going to the gym?
Clearly most gyms are not accessible. and how can they? I think we should offer a certain level of tolerance to what able-bodied people, or what is designed for able-bodied people, and then used by able-bodied people. What I quite like to point out with this question is that there are also a lot of good people that try to enable us to take part, to participate. And yes, of course, gyms or even my gym is not fully accessible, and the gym knows that, the university knows that, and they try to work around that, try to work with me to enable me to use what I want to use. And then, of course, there are other examples where when I was rowing that I couldn't get to the water because there was a big stairway leading down to the river, and I can't take stairs.
I do it sitting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think inclusive rowing club should do better in that case and enable athletes to take part rather than having a staff member or a friendly person or a pedestrian or bystander out of the kindness of its heart to help you. And I struggle a bit more with the systematic discrimination against disabled people, which not with the individual. When you have laws created to protect you as a disabled person, but no one is following them up. When you have a head number you can call, and then you need that person, like a disability law service or designated regional officer, and there's no one at the other end of the line, and you call them for months. And what the UK also does is it classifies certain disabilities, including ataxia, as unfit to drive a car, which means if you were driving and then you get diagnosed with ataxia, you lose your driving license. Mm-hmm. You need to redo a driving test. And as long as the government structure is discriminatory, how can we expect from citizens to not be?
Yes. I think sure, that's something I'm working on here in India as well. Amanda just touched upon it also. You know, there's one thing, the awareness can be from the ground up, but it definitely has to be from the top down too, meaning it has to start with our authorities, governments, etc.
Lead by example, yeah.
Valeria, you know, it's interesting. When I was initially diagnosed, I was also given a card because sometimes when I walked, it looked like I was drunk too. So one of the neurologists that I went to wrote me a card to say, you know, because I was at the time trying to get my license, like, show this, you know, if you get pulled over, show this card to the officer, you know. So I think there's already a discrimination within our authorities. There has to be an awareness, a sensitization there too. Jacob, let me ask you the final question. So give me examples of the 3 most ableist situations or stereotypes that you have faced and your response to them.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. The 3 most what?
Ableist situations.
Okay. So I mean, what I as all of other Ataxians, what I face a lot is being called a drunk. So what I do to like, I mean, I learned that it's the worst if you just take it in. I when some injustice happens to me, I always like tell the people, and I don't think it's right to take it in. You have to tell the others, so I don't have that issue within me. So I tell the others and show them my disability card, and then they are quiet, and then I'm quite sure they won't do it again, because what they do to me, they can do to others. And if they don't do it to me again, then they don't do it to others.
Okay.
So that's the...
So I have a question for all of you. So we all go out to movie theaters, to stores, to buy clothes. We go to the gym. So, most times, actually, these places are not accessible. So when you go to a movie theater, when you go out and you are faced in this situation, Valeria, Amanda, Jacob, and George, what's your situation? I mean, personally, I get frustrated. And when I go to a public area that is not accessible, sometimes I question the fairness, right? Because I think having a place that's inaccessible is discrimination in itself. What do you guys think?
Absolutely discriminatory, because there should be, I mean, in America, I only know we have what they call America Disability Act. So we can call them at any time and explain our situation. However, they don't act on it immediately. So it is upsetting when I go to places and it's not handicap accessible. I can't walk down those steps, or I have a hard time walking down those steps to go to a movie.
I think what's important is to complain. Just tell them or give them a bad reference. Just make sure that they change it. And there's nothing worse than a bad reference for most of these places. That's what I think. You have to act. You cannot be a victim. You have to do something against it.
Amanda, any insight?
I would just agree with what everyone has said. Yeah, you bring attention to it, and like we do have here the ADA that you can call and complain about, or directly, contact the establishment directly and make a complaint.
Yeah. So
I admire the energy Jacob has.
I admire him too.
I just, there's so many instances where I try to complain or criticize or change something, and you just can't. Just nothing happened.
I would tend to agree. Here in India, you can definitely complain as well, but there's a difference in having a channel for these complaints. And I know in the US we have the ADA. We have something similar here, but the problem is its implementation, right? In India, we have so many laws, but we fall really short when it comes to implementation. And I think the US is doing far better than India in this perspective, but it sounds like there's still a little lag in terms of implementation.
Yes, I agree.
So going on to our next question, which is on mental health. So we know that dealing with ataxia is not all physical. there's definitely a mental component to us. So I want to understand from all of you how ataxia has impacted your mental health and what are some of the coping mechanisms that you use. So Valeria, we'll start with you. Can you tell us how you deal with depression and anxiety on days when you feel low?
I actually see a therapist weekly. She helps me with mechanism as of journaling. I'm just starting meditation, but I get off, my mind goes like 20 other places. So I'm having a hard time coping that way. But I do see a therapist, and exercise keeps my mind healthy, I think. I think if I didn't turn to that, I would be in a different position than I am. I mean, I know that I struggle, and I know we all struggle. I mean, everybody does have a struggle in life. Just how we get there it's a little different for us. Because when I wake up in the morning, I don't really know how my day is going to go. Is that going to be a high anxiety day? Ataxia is like all over the place. I don't think we could, limit it to one thing. It's when our stress is high, our ataxia is worse. When our anxiety is high. So I do it through those two channels. They're the only two I know about.
Yeah, I think it's very important to keep yourself in good spirits. I know it's challenging, but unfortunately, we have a physical condition, but the mental condition is almost just as important because, like you said, when you're anxious or when you're stressed, it definitely takes a toll on the physical aspect as well. So I think that's an important takeaway from here. Jacob, you've paid a lot of respect to George here. So do you think having a supportive friend from the community impacts your ability to cope with challenges, and how?
Yeah, definitely. I'm involved with FARA. I have a FA group in my country that I built with 30 FAers. So I believe community is the key. And George inspired me to start exercising a lot, so I will be forever grateful to him. So I think that it's very important, and maybe I can inspire others with what I tell you guys. So I think that's very important. And to talk about mental health, I think it's the key to health. I think mental health is far more important than physical health. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can walk or not. It matters how you react on it, how you cope with things.
Right.
I think for mental health, for me, most important is meditation or relaxation, and exercise, because especially with winter depression, I think exercise and sweating has helped me a lot.
Rowing is a team sport. That
Yes.
is something one must not forget. You're not alone in this. If you struggle getting up and you have the commitment to a team, find people that lift you up, that take you to exercise, even if you don't want to. Get a team and work together on it. And especially those days, I get them too. When you don't want to move, when you feel alone, just do something. Get up, get a team, do just a bit, just anything, just not nothing.
So to all of our panelists, I would pose a discussion. George, you mentioned team. So what do you think it is about having a support group that enables coping mechanism? Meaning, what benefits do you see with having a support group or even a friend to talk to exercise with, whatever? Tell me about that. Amanda, what do you think?
Well, I was just thinking about mental health, and one of the most important things for me that I've found is not time traveling. So I try and stay here right now, today. Because if I time travel to the past, I'm comparing myself to the things I used to be able to do. If I time travel to the future, I'm thinking of all the things I'm probably not going to be able to do. And I just really have to stay right here, right now, in the things that, you know, I can do in this day when I get up. And, you know, to some other, you know, you all have mentioned a little bit about, you know, each day is different with ataxia. Some days I wake up and I feel like there's so much I can do. And some days I wake up and there's nothing I can do but rest and give myself the time to, you know, really just rest and recover. But even to George's point, like even in those days, like getting up and if all you can do is stretch, you stretch. If you can, you know, do a little bit more movement than that, do a little bit more movement. But I think when I was first diagnosed, I immediately found a support group of people specifically with SCA6. And I started immediately attending the Monday meetings. And at the time, everybody in the group was so much farther along in their symptoms and their progression that I got really freaked out, because I'm sitting in this room every week with all of these people who I felt kind of like an imposter, because here I am, my symptoms weren't really progressed nearly anything close to theirs, and I felt like I didn't really have any right to be there. But having that group and having people that I know that are out there that I can connect with and share with is like having a team. It's very, very helpful to know, even just knowing you all are out here. And, you know, maybe the next day that I don't feel like doing anything, I'll message George on Instagram, and, you know, that's where we're here for each other. And, you know, it's so important.
Amanda, you mentioned staying present, which is really useful. Can you tell us how you stay present? What are some mindful techniques you use?
With the meditation, you know, it's as you all know who are either doing meditation or have tried, it's all about returning to the moment, you know, and staying present in the moment. Or, I mean, obviously there are all kinds of different meditations that you can do. But when I feel myself spiraling, you know, one of the things that's helpful is if you can put your feet on the floor and feel your feet on the floor, and remind yourself that you are right here in this moment, and feel where you are in time and space. I'm right here. I'm not in the past, you know, running a 6-minute mile. I'm right here, and right here, right now, I can do the things that I can do. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't know what kind of medical interventions they're going to come up with. I'm not psychic. And I have to, you know, leave it open to all the possibilities, you know, and not try and predict the future or pretend to know where I'm going to be in a year or 2 years.
Very insightful. Thank you, Amanda. My next question is on social dynamics. So, as you guys already discussed, living with ataxia impacts our relationships with friends and family. So I want to know from our panelists how ataxia has shaped your social dynamics and what role it plays in family support. So Valeria, I'll start with you. Can you tell me how ataxia has impacted your social relations over the years?
It's a good one, actually. I'm probably not as social as I used to. One, because I used to drive myself wherever I wanted. I can't drive anymore because my balance and my shaking so bad. So I rely on Ubers, and my brother and my partner was, you know, always drive me wherever I wanted to. So as far as that goes, I try to be as active socially as I can. Am I accepted socially by my family? Yes. My family accepts me. My friends accept me. They don't understand what I go through on a daily basis. That part is difficult on their end. You know, I'd be selfish not to admit that. I know how I feel. They can't possibly know what's going on in my body. So their support system and their positive, you know, when they tell me all the time, you know, you're doing good or this is good or whatever, but nobody knows really what we go through but us. So I don't know if I went off on a different way with that, but I apologize if I did. But I do have friends, I have family. My mom and dad are both gone, so all I have is my brother and a few cousins. But they all understand what I do have, and they accept me for me, but they don't understand what I go through on a daily basis. That's
George,
the best I can cover.
George, how challenging has it been for you to find a partner, and what difficulties have you faced in sustaining a relationship given the physical challenges you've experienced?
Me? Oh,
Yes, you.
I've just gone through a divorce, so that should answer most of your questions. And yeah, it's I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I simply don't know. It's an interesting outlook on life now. It's different.
Yeah. Amanda, do you have anything to add there?
Oh, well, I am too as well going through a divorce. And you know, it's I think that is an aspect to, you know, if you enter into a relationship, a marriage, prior to your symptoms or your diagnosis, you know, it's it can be really problematic. You know, it's supposed to be, you know, sickness and health, but for a lot of people, that's just not the reality. And like you know,
When
like I
we talk
mentioned,
about support groups, it's not just us that need to deal with the diagnosis, it's our family, friends, and partners.
yes, yeah. I have been lucky to, you know, fall in love and be in a new, beautiful relationship where I feel very, very supported. And initially it was interesting because it's the first time I, you know, had to disclose before dating my partner that I have a neurodegenerative disease. And I really did struggle with that initially, you know, I felt that it was something obviously that I wasn't going to enter into a relationship with somebody without telling them. But I think that it adds a whole nother layer to dating. Because I think it's potentially scary for people when you say, you know, I have a degenerative disease, there's no cure, and the treatments are very, very limited. And I have days where I'm barely functional or, you know, so yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
You did. I think, yeah, I think you said it. It adds another layer to the relationship that people generally don't have to think about. Okay, my last question is to you, Jacob. In what ways have you felt that your different ability has influenced your relationships with friends?
I feel that my friendships are way deeper now, and I have way better friendships. And what changed is that I have a lot of friends with disabilities. So I mean, there's just a layer there that we understand each other better. So I guess 50% of my friends have a disability, and because we talked about partners, in my last relationship, my last girlfriend had a disability, so there was a deep understanding in there. I mean, there are other conflicts than when both are disabled, but I think it is logical and can make things easier if your partner also have a disability.
Yeah. Very, very nice. Very nice closing statement. Okay, so my next question is about breaking down stigmas. So I want to talk about the stigmas attached to ataxia and disability in general. What are some common misconceptions that you've encountered, and how can we collectively break down these stereotypes? So Amanda, my first question is to you. Have you encountered any prejudices from society regarding your ability to pursue a fitness career? Yeah.
Well, when I started my business was prior to my diagnosis, and I think if anyone is being hard on me, it's me, because I'm used to showing up in my business in a way that I can no longer show up. And I've thought about getting back into the fitness and nutrition industry. And the biggest hurdle is making peace with the fact that I won't be able to do it the way that I'm used to doing it. And that is one of the things that I am trying to currently figure out. How do I and do I actually want to get back into the business of helping other people when I feel like so much of my energy and attention needs to be spent on myself? Because for almost 20 years, I took care of my clients, and spent a lot of energy making sure that they were doing all the things they needed to do to take care of themselves and taking care of myself. And I don't know that I have all of that energy anymore. And so I don't know if that.
It does. Thank you. So your biggest, I think your biggest prejudice right now is yourself, because I think you said you're not, your symptoms aren't as bad, so you're still comparing yourself to your previous version.
Yes.
Valeria, I want to ask you, in social settings, have you experienced moments where people avoided you or treated you differently because of your condition?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that quite a bit. Now family and friends who understand what I have, I find when I go out with a family and friends, whether it be dinner or whatever have it, you know, with them, I feel comfortable, I'm me. But in front of other people, I think that we live in a society, whether we have ADA or not, we live in a society who frowns on the disabled. And a lot of times it's lack of knowing what we have. I mean, you know, like I said earlier, you know, their first impression of me is that I'm drunk, and I'm not. And then if they see me trying to walk with a cane, I'm all over the place, or a walker, they think I'm elderly. There's so many things our society does not know. But socially, the people I'm with understand what I have. So they make me, I guess it's a safe issue with that. I feel safe with that group, but I don't feel so safe in society because they do look at me different. So again, I don't know if that's your, you know, the correct answer, but that's kind of how I feel. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
You know, okay, it's valid. Jacob, so there's a stereotype that people with ataxia are unable to enjoy social events and parties because of our limitations. Do you think this is a valid belief?
No. I also enjoy parties, but I enjoy them differently, mostly in the early hours. So when there's a party from 6 to 4 a.m., I'm there from 6 to 10 p.m. because I'm bad at night when it gets dark and when I get tired. But I enjoy them. I enjoy being social. Mostly sitting. I mean, I don't enjoy standing around, and mostly people with ataxia cannot drink as much and be maybe social in that way. But I think it's wrong if you say you don't enjoy parties, because then you take away a fun thing, one more fun thing of life.
Okay, George, my last question is to you. So people often assume in society that if you have a physical condition, you have a mental condition. My question to you is, have you encountered this misconception and how do you address it?
Oh, I don't think I have. So I'm living in a very privileged environment in Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the academic content is extremely high, and I don't think anyone in my environment or which I've met over the last years would question my cognitive abilities. That hasn't happened. There's a clear physical problem. So when we talk about parties, I do have a wheelchair. I don't use it except for when there's a social gathering and I would need to stand or walk for a long time, and I simply can't do that. That would be when I'm actually getting out the wheelchair once or twice a year, and normally that happens at school gatherings from my children, and they enjoy it a bit too much, so it won't take that long. And I have 2 kids on my lap I need to wheel around, but then it becomes obvious to everyone that I do have a physical problem, but I don't think anyone I met in this environment here would assume there's a mental component to my condition.
What I find is that wherever I am in the world, and I travel pretty often, so I've been to Europe, US, and I've been to India. And although it's definitely far worse in India, there I do see a parallel in in countries that I visited that do assume that because I have a physical limitation, somehow cognitively, I need help. So for example, when I go out, I'm not addressed. The person with me is addressed. Now, when I'm in the US, this is far less prevalent. In the US, I'm more independent because I think in the UK as well, I think because there's more awareness, but I think that that coupling between physical and mental illness, I think I see my experience is that it's still there.
It's just I haven't experienced anything along these lines.
You're lucky then, George. You're privileged.
I'm also in a very privileged part of the UK, a very
but also you see, women have traditionally been defined as a minority. So you're coming from the male species, no offense, but which is, so generally, especially in India, because the society here is patriarchal, I'm looked at as now a double minority, right? I'm a woman, I'm not only a female, but I'm disabled. So I'm waiting for my 3rd minority status. Okay, so my final question, guys, and Amanda, thanks for hanging in there. So finally, I want to talk about the future. So what do you all think about the future in terms of research, treatment, and societal inclusion for those living with ataxia? What do you hope to see? And then my follow-up question is, how can we, as a community, drive the changes that we want to see? Amanda, we'll start with you. I love your insights, Amanda.
I'm really happy that Bill Nye has gotten involved in the ataxia awareness movement, and seeing the things coming out on the National Ataxia Foundation. You know, I love that people are being more vocal on social media and dedicating their pages to ataxia awareness.
Mhm.
And you know, I think it would be really amazing if, you know, they advanced some of the research. I try and get involved in as many research studies as possible. Just because I think I am in kind of a rare position that I was diagnosed with ataxia in the earlier stages. That doesn't typically happen. Usually, like my dad wasn't diagnosed until his 70s when his symptoms got so obvious that he was sent to a neurologist because people kept assuming that he was drunk. And so I like to try and be a part of as many research studies as possible. But yeah, just more people speaking out, more people coming together, and you know, more funding for more research, because there needs to be more research done.
Thank you, Amanda. George, what's your input?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so what do you, or for the future, what do you hope to see in terms of research, in terms of treatment,
Yeah.
and in terms of inclusion for those of us who are living with ataxia, and how can we in specific as a community drive the changes that we want to see?
Yeah, especially when it comes to research, we are not just patients. So when it comes to knowledge about ataxia, we know it better than any medic I've met.
Mhm.
I've been on this journey for about 9 years. I always get the same paragraph from the medical textbook read out to me when I say, oh, I do sport, and then they always say, oh, you must not exercise under extreme pressure, you must not lift heavy weights, and I do all of that. So when it comes to knowledge about ataxia, I want to see that we as, I don't want to use the term sufferer, but let's just use it now, and because I can't think of a better word. Trust us. We know what we are doing. We experience this every day. Listen to what we think about it. Don't come up with a treatment, with a cure, with a magic pill someone made up in an ivory tower and hand it down to us. Get us involved about our condition. We are ataxia. That is an inseparable part of my nature, is Friedreich's ataxia. I have to live in a coexistence with my condition. So I want to see getting us more involved into treatments, into a cure, even though that's a strong word, to actually find it. And in terms of inclusion, I think we are in the same position as other disabilities, and the same probably applies to that. Get us as community, give us more an active role, listen to us more when we need changes.
Yeah.
Don't just do it and assume we like it.
Yeah. There is in India there is a slogan here, no decision for us without us, which is I think very powerful and can be extrapolated to policy making, to inclusion, to treatment, to research, because I think a lot of, not only for ataxias, I think widespreadly decisions are generally made without the stakeholder, which I see is very relevant, especially with ataxia. Jacob, do you have any insight on this question?
Yes. Regarding FA, free-direct ataxia, I think that there's a lot of research being done. We have like 15 trials in the pipeline, and there will come something. I don't really believe in a cure, because I don't think that the pharma companies want to cure us, so it's actually truth, but I believe in that there will be treatments. About the inclusion, I think it's important to keep raising awareness as we do. I do a lot of interviews and newspaper articles. I have a documentary about my life with ataxia. And I think we have to keep telling people that this exists and disabilities, and we are not strangers and not creeps. Yeah, that's my insights.
Thank you, Jacob, for those lovely insights. Finally, Amanda, do you want to shed any light here?
Oh, I thought I was the first one that went.
Okay, sorry, Valeria, would you like to shed any light?
Okay. I think we have to keep speaking on ataxia on these platforms, whether it be on your platform or our own platform. I think we need to make them aware. It's unfortunate that we all have ataxia, like I said, but if you look at all of us individually, we all have it different. You have it one way, I have it another. So finding a cure, I'm gonna have to agree with you. I don't think a cure is gonna come in our lifetime. Unfortunately, I don't see it, but I'm hopeful. I'm not negative about that. But I agree with you in the way it should be. We should be involved more. Whether we have to go to our government. I mean, there was a documentary on ALS where a gentleman got more funding through the government because he had these meetings with them. We don't have that kind of advocate for ataxia, unfortunately, where they actually go and talk to the government and fight with the government. It was actually, they were going back and forth on it, but the gentleman had won, and the funding went directly to ALS. And sometimes I wish it would go to NAF so that, I mean, they've done quite a bit of research. I mean, we know all the SCAs that have been determined, and everything else, but I think there has to be more awareness that has to come directly from us. And I think we have to keep getting on these platforms and making other people aware of ataxia. They think that's the biggest problem. They're not aware. When they look at us, they see that we're disabled, but they have no idea what we have.
Right.
If we had a missing limb or something like that, they would know that we had a missing limb. But with ataxia, being that we are all so different and we have it differently, I think they don't know. So I think it would have to go two ways. One, us talking more about it and getting more funding for NEF, whether it be in the UK. I know has a big following, and so does the United States. They have
Yes.
the one, I believe, in Minnesota. But I think we have to make them, you know, if they're not aware of it, NAF, we have to make them aware.
Mhm.
Again, I apologize, Alma, if I'm going off
No,
this.
no, please don't apologize. That was very insightful. Actually, all of your answers were very insightful. I think, like all of you touched upon, vocalizing and being, just being in the limelight is a way to bring out awareness. And that's, I think, why we're here today. And personally in my lifetime, I'm seeing a change. So when I was younger, Amanda, just like the story you said about when you were in the airport, when I was younger, my symptoms were when my symptoms were very less and hardly noticeable. I remember I used to cry, wishing I had something more noticeable. Which is funny because now you're like, oh, I can't walk. Oh, I wish I knew how to walk, right? But you know, but in terms of awareness, what I'm seeing is that like when I was younger, I used to go to public places and people used to look at me like I was an alien, you know, or what's wrong with this girl? Whereas now it's more, I think for me, when I'm in the US, it's totally comfortable going grocery shopping or going to Target. But then when I go to India, it's I can still go out on my own, but it's still a little bit abrasive for me. I still have to think twice because people still sometimes look at me with a crooked eye, which makes me feel a little weird. But thanks all for your answers. I hope you know, so ataxia is just a really a speck in terms of its prevalence in the world, which is why I think it's not getting a lot of attention. But one thing is that ataxia is also a symptom, right? So when people have a stroke or a spinal cord injury, they have ataxia, which is a symptom, which was incidentally what I was diagnosed with as a child because medicine wasn't as advanced then, and we didn't really know what I had. So I was just diagnosed with spinocerebellar ataxia. So the reason this question is so important for me is because the youth, the future is really where it's at, right? I know we all want to stay in the present, we want to focus on our lives, but really it's about the next generation, the generation after that, that's really going to put in the impact. So I spend my time here trying to educate people on the importance of diversity and bringing out awareness for that there are people with different abilities, and it doesn't mean we're inferior, or it doesn't mean we're special, or it doesn't mean that we're weird. It just means that we're different, right? Maybe we can't walk, maybe we can't hear, but there are some things we can do that you can't do. So to this effect, I am opening my own NGO to bring out awareness. I do motivational speaking. I go to different corporates and NGOs talking about the importance of diversity and inclusion. This is what I do. And also to close up I want to introduce my WhatsApp group. Amanda, like you said, you meeting George here, you know, I think now we've all drawn some kind of parallel. There's something that's similar in each of our stories. I've listened to everyone's answers, and I see a strong parallel between everyone's answers. So now, all of us, Jacob, George, Amanda, Valeria, I think we've all connected in a certain way. And even though, besides George and Jacob, even though we're all in different parts of the world, I think that support, we just established that today, and I think we can continue that. So to this effect, I have a WhatsApp group called Uran, and it's a support group exactly for like what you said, Amanda, just to know that there are people out there. You know, if you need help with getting a job, or if you're having an emotional crisis, or if you just want some support, we know that there are people like-minded that are here for you. So with that, I want to close our discussion today. And Amanda, it's getting late here today, so I'm getting sleepy. But I know it's early for you and it's becoming later. So while you're waking up, I'm going to sleep.
Okay.
So
night.
I wanna thank you all for sharing your very powerful stories and your insights with us today. The impact of your stories that your stories have created, I'm sure, without a doubt, will inspire everyone here to build strength and resilience. Ataxia might affect our bodies, but as we've seen today, it doesn't stop us from living bold, fulfilling lives. Remember, inclusion starts with each of us, and by sharing our stories, we're moving one step closer to a world that embraces diversity. Thank you again to all our amazing panelists and for everyone tuning in. Let's keep this conversation going by going beyond today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And I hope we stay connected.
Yes.
I hope so too. I've talked to you, Amanda, so I'm familiar with you. So
Yes.
we
Good to
will.
It's good to see you all here.
Same here. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right,
And
everyone.
let's continue to, you know, to bring awareness to the world by having, you know, talks like these, because as many viewers we have on the discussion today, I'll be posting this on YouTube. Let's see how far it goes. You know, the more of these discussions we have, the more open we are, the more of you that share your stories, that's the more inclusive our world gets, and that's I think our goal.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing this, Alma.
Thank you, Amanda, for joining. Thank you, Valeria. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, George.
All right, everyone have a good day.
You too.
Have a nice
Good night, everyone.
Or good sleep. Good sleep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good night.
Bye, guys. Good night.
Bye.